Greetings, adventurers. This is DM Kurt. And it hasn't been the best 24 hours down here, but on the bright side, I have now officially lost 30 pounds. So, milestone. Awesome. But what I've been thinking about lately is paladins. Okay? Paladins in D&D. So, I pulled out a few books. Okay, I read up on the first and second edition. Okay, grabbed Castles and Crusades, and of course, fifth edition. So, because that's what's currently being played at a lot of tables. If you go online to various forums, Twitter, Facebook, yada, 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 you'll hear people describe paladins as, well, they're fighters, but with smite slots. They have this alpha strike, see, and you recharges on a rest, which is great, because you can pump all that damage out at once. And that's the primary focus for some players. Okay, it's just this set of mechanics. Okay, well, what else we got going on? What other differences we got going on? I thought it was kind of interesting. So, first and second edition, it's mostly the same game. It's made legal. Second edition was made legally distinct, and slightly different. And so, for various reasons, some of which may have been to not have to pay royalties to the makers of D&D, like Gary. But that's neither here nor there. Paladins could be specifically only human and lawful good. I think they might have allowed half-elf in one of those, but I think it was human only. Anyway, human and lawful good. And a paladin was a lawful good religious warrior. Okay? Sort of modeled after Knights Templar, etc., etc., etc. Okay? That was their initial thing. I looked at Castles and Crusades, had an interesting take on it. Lawful good only. Okay, so you're still staying with the alignment. And there was nothing in the character class saying that a paladin had to be only human. But if you look in the races, the description of the races, every race had a list of typical classes for that race. Okay. Half-elves and humans, typical classes, any. All the other races, typical classes, and they'd give a short list with just a few classes. Now, typical doesn't mean only. It just means typical. So that's kind of between you and your castle keeper as to whether or not you can have a dwarven paladin in Castles and Crusades. The way I read it, okay? If you read typical classes as X, but not Y, we can talk about that in the comments. 5e. Okay, 5e. I thought it was a little more flippant than it actually was. But in the flavor text for the 5e Paladin in Player's Handbook, it strongly suggests that Paladins are exclusively good. There's no distinct alignment requirement. But some of the oaths are pretty much you have to behave in a manner that would philosophically align with good. And then there's the Oath of Vengeance. And then there's the Xanathar's Guide, Oath of Conquest. Which, Oath of Conquest, your ability is to have an aura of fear and, it's not necessarily a lot of good aligned seeming flavor text on that one. So I had to compare not just the game mechanics of, this one gets a smite and this one gets lay on hands. They pretty much all get lay on hands and they get these spells and yada, yada, yada. I didn't want to compare that. That's just dumb and boring. Well, it's not dumb, but it's boring. We can already go through that. That's not the point here. I'd look at the consequences. What happens if a paladin acts in a way outside of his faith? Or her, whatever. So, first and second edition, again, pretty much parallel. Become a fighter without the benefits of weapon specialization. Weapon specialization being a fighter ability, because you did not pick fighter to begin with. You are not a fighter. You don't get that one ability of fighters. You're a slightly worse fighter. Okay. And that's the assumption of, you failed in your alignment. You failed in your honor, and you made little to no efforts of atonement. Okay? You become a fighter with a slight disadvantage. Castles and Crusades was rough on this. If you, as a paladin, totally besmirched your faith and your oath and your pride and your honor, permanently stop advancing in strength and power. That sounds like no longer able to gain levels. Okay? Harshest right there. I mean, if everybody is 5th level and you screw up your 5th level, and then go up in levels. Level advancement in C&C is a little slower than like 5e. But you're still kind of stuck, and you might as well just re-roll a new character. And lose abilities. So any religious, holy, divine abilities you had for following your faith, you're going to lose. Make sense? In 5th edition, it's page 86 of the player's handbook. Okay? It says if you fail to abide by your oath, you can seek atonement. Most of these have the option of seeking atonement. But if you, as a holy paladin, decide to just go completely off the rails evil and just do whatever you want, no honor, no dignity, etc., etc., abandon your class and start a new one, or become a new one, which, are you really starting at level 1, or are you just kind of switching over? Or perhaps, and I'm going to have to look this one right up so I get it here verbatim. Page 86. So, if a paladin willfully violates his or her oath and shows no sign of repentance, the consequences can be more serious. At the DM's discretion, an impertinent paladin, impenitent, not penitent, not remorseful. Paladin, yada, 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 forced to abandon their class and adopt another. So that's, I don't know if that's really starting at level 1 or just kind of, I just want to respec into another class. Hate the video game terminology. We're role-playing here. We're not just number crunching, okay? Or perhaps to take the Oathbreaker Paladin option that appears in the Dungeon Master's Guide. The Oathbreaker Paladin. You become an Oathbreaker. Oh no! It is essentially being rewarded with a different set of abilities instead. That is not really a punishment. And in fact, you become what I would say an evil character as an Oathbreaker Paladin with the ability to, animate the dead, command the dead, that sort of thing. That's a non-player character to me. That's an NPC villain. That's what it's rife for. Not in a game of heroic fantasy do you become an evil character. Okay? So that's kind of a problem there. But where am I going with all this? I mean, you could look up all that stuff. You could see there's differences there. 5e was not quite as flippant as I thought it was. I'll give them that. They do require that. Races. What races? In 5e, can a human be a paladin? Certainly. Can a half-elf be a paladin? Certainly. Can any ancestry, heritage, race, whatever you want to call it, be a paladin in 5e? Well, according to this, yes. You could literally be a tiefling, which is a person descended from ancestry that messed around with demons and devils. Okay? You could be 164th demon on your mother's side and be a holy warrior. Well, paladin, it just has smite slots, It's just another fighter. There could be something about somebody trying to be trying to overcome their nature and say, trying to redeem their bloodline from the sins of their forefathers. You could go something like that. Or it could be just, well, this set of abilities looks really cool when I put that set of abilities on top of it. They sort of work together, see, mechanically. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe. But I gave up my Castle Keeper's Guide and kind of handed over the DM screen, and, we have a different person sitting at the head of the table, and he's running a 5e campaign. Okay? And in this 5e campaign, we're going, he wanted to do a old school flavor. I'm like, okay, it sounds good. So we have limited ourselves into humans can only be, this is 5e, a fighter of the Cavalier or Champion archetype, a cleric of knowledge, life, or light domains, a wizard of any school of magic other than necromancy, because those are going to be reserved for villains. Because necromancers, creepy. Or rogues of, I believe it's thief, scout and swashbuckler. And then if you're half orc, you can only be a berserker barbarian. If you're a high elf, eldritch knight fighter. And so these choices of archetypes are limited, but they fit within the whole races class thing that used to happen, and it fits within the stereotypes and themes of the races allowed. And we're pretty much only sticking with the races that were in first edition. Okay, so elf, half elf, dwarf, etc. Although hill and mountain, so that's 2 races technically. High and wood elf, so that's 2 races technically, not just one. So we're playing this. And then when it came time to make up a character for this 5e campaign, I thought, oh, I can't be a paladin as a human. But what if we flip this on its head? Okay? Instead of playing like, some Twitterati or whatever kid, who's doing I picked this paladin class because it has these mechanics. And then don't role play out the oath or the alignment or anything. What's your alignment? Well, it's chaotic neutral, so I can do whatever I want. What's that really mean? I do whatever I want. What I can't solve with damage per round, I settle with intimidation. Boom. Settles it out. So, okay. Let's do this differently. Let's play a fighter. All right? Mechanically a fighter, but role-played paladin-like. Okay? Needed a name. Kevin. Kevin what? Kevin sounds like a human name. Well, any normal name is a human name, really. Kevin Dupree. Kevin Dupree. Okay. Awful good. Let's write that down. Let's have trying to tithe 10% of his income out. So I tried to do that. Tried to give 3 gold out of my 30 I'd earned. Ooh, 30. And we'll try to see if that'll earn him, try to get him some tithe here. Let me pause this for a second. So he goes ahead and he eventually earns himself 30 gold. Well, I owe 3, because I'm going to tithe it. Tried to give it to this priestess at a shrine, but she said, oh, no, just give it to the poor. Don't give it to me. No, don't do me any good. I did buy a book. How to Plan a Crusade. So the fighter's like, okay, well, we're taking a short rest. I'm going to sit and I'm going to read my book. And so I pulled out of my bag my book. Hey, fun, right? Kind of getting in character, all that. I got a book. That's what he's reading. How to Plan a Crusade. Why is the fighter reading? Well, the fighter actually has a 13 int. He's slightly above average on the smarts. My plan is to follow the restrictions of a paladin. May own no more than 10 magical items, of which no more than 4 can be weapons, no more than 4 can be miscellaneous, and you're allowed 1 suit of armor and 1 shield. That's your total maximum. Of course, with 5e, attunement slots really limit you on your magic items, so that might not be really that hard to do, to limit myself on magic items. But that's the plan. I have role played out, hey, what do you do? Well, okay, every morning I get up and pray while doing push-ups. So, push-ups. And, he's got his little chant, and, he says little chant type things in combat. They're from the they're from the region called Carvor. I am a real Carvorian. Fight for the rights of every man. If you hurt my friends, you hurt my pride. I've got something burning deep inside. Courage is the thing that keeps us free. Nobody's really caught on to where I cribbed those lyrics from. I kind of hope they do, because that's a little cheesy little thing there. But anyway, that's kind of where I am with Paladins and role playing a fighter who's kind of doing the Paladin thing, trying to do the alignment, trying to do the holding on to dignity and honor. Anyway, that's just me. DM Kurt out.